Welcome back to Inside Politics. Our guest today is Keel Hunt. He's written a terrific new book called Crossing the Aisle about how bipartisanship in Tennessee has moved us ahead, both in the 80s and 90s, and continue to do so if that's what the voters and the politicians want to do. Keel, I want to take an example out of your book because it includes something back in my reporting days at Channel 5. The Nissan plant in Smyrna, known as Datsun back in those days, began to make this state a national manufacturing center for automobiles. That's long been perceived as positive, but on the day that the ground was broken for that plant back in 1981, not everybody was pleased. Let's take a look at what happened that day.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen.
From the beginning of today's ceremony, Southern hospitality was hard to find, as booze and catcalls put an even sharper edge on the frosty morning air. Actually, the protesters from organized labor all over Middle Tennessee and even from Alabama began arriving here at daybreak, some 1,500 strong. They're upset about the lack of union workers hired to build this plant, and they let everybody know it, with signs, placards, even a circling airplane, all saying boycott Datsun. Datsun officials tried to carry on, humorously telling the crowd that boo means welcome in Japanese, also saying what happened today won't affect plant construction. But they were constantly met with chants of go home Jap, remember Pearl Harbor, and go home rat. It was a situation often laced with great irony.
Thank you all for your support, your hospitality, and your personal warmth.
But the protesters saved their loudest jeers for the open shop Daniel Construction Company of South Carolina, which is building the plant, and for Governor Alexander, who was instrumental in bringing Datsun here. The protesters called the governor a scab. However, he had an answer.
And if I thought for one moment that the rude and insulting treatment that a handful of people here have given to Nissan represented more than half of 1%, then I would have suggested that they go on to Georgia.
There was a group of residents here that support the plant and cheered the governor's remarks, but they were often drowned out by the boos. Later, the actual groundbreaking was disrupted too. Not only did union protesters refuse to move so a Datsun truck equipped with a snowplow could break up the soil, they also covered the truck with signs and placards and let the air out of the tires. Some rocks were even thrown at the governor and Datsun officials here, with one plainclothes Smyrna policeman knocked unconscious and taken to a hospital. He was not believed seriously hurt, however, and while police and state troopers swarmed the area, no one was reported arrested. Meanwhile, union organizers say this is only the beginning.
We'll probably have several demonstrations such as this. Of course, we're going to continue with our boycott that we got started. We'll probably be working on the Datsun distributors around Middle Tennessee and all across Tennessee, really.
So for better or for worse, Datsun has officially come to Tennessee. There seems to be just about one thing that can be agreed upon, that like Humpty Dumpty after the proverbial fall, things here will never be the same again. In Smyrna, Pat Nolan, Television 5, Eyewitness News.
We continue our conversation with Keel Hunt. Keel, that was obviously a very ugly, somewhat partisan situation, although because the legislature was in control at that time was Democrats and you had a Republican governor. But the parties came together on this, and even eventually the labor leaders came around. Talk about how that happened.
Oh, yes, but I would just like to say one of the most important things about that film was that we all got to see Pat Nolan with dark hair. Now, this was almost 40 years ago. But right. yes, it came together. In fact, that clearly, you know, was a local labor dispute, but it was, you know, that was overcome. The very next day, the state legislature passed a resolution that you know, condemned,
more or less condemned what happened.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. And everything sort of moved on in due course. Well, now, of course, the Nissan, other automakers have been embraced by our state. The employment is there. Good paying jobs have grown dramatically. In fact, the one interviewee you talked to there said we're going to talk to distributors in Tennessee too, hoping to disrupt the supply chain. We now have about 1,000 auto distributors, and they're good paying jobs all over our state.
Hey, Keel, as we close out, I want to read a quote from Howard Baker that's in the front of your book. It says, "We cannot be civil to one another if we cannot stop dealing with those we disagree or we don't like. will stop soon functioning altogether. Is that what's at stake, not only in the election coming up, but for that matter in our future?
Oh, very much so. It's all about choices that voters make as we move forward, and what elected officials hear from them and take to heart for when they begin to make policy. It could happen. Now, I'm an optimist, and things don't have to turn out that way at all, and that's the hope of our country. One of the other quotes in front of the book, Congressman Jim Cooper said flatly, he said, "This history is largely lost." And so I felt it was important to capture it.
Keel Hunt, thank you so much.
Pat.
I'm sure your book is available everywhere, and people will be fine. I hope they read it because it's a very good book.
Thank you, sir.
And thank you for joining us on Inside Politics. Hoping you'll be back here again for a future show. If you can't get the politics in the meantime, go to the News Channel 5 website. You'll find my Capitol View commentary there. There's a commentary posted every Friday afternoon. Enjoy the rest of your weekend, and we'll see you back here next time. Goodbye.